Hello students, today we are going to discuss about next topic of this chapter, and that is pteridophytes. Pteridophyte include horsetails. Here you can see the photograph of a horsetail. Okay, and next is a fern. Okay, so this pteridophyte will include horsetails and the ferns. They are found in a cool, damp, shady places. Some flourish well in the sandy soil also. Okay, so they are found in the vast variety of habitats. Okay, including a cool, damp, shady places. Okay, even in the sandy soil conditions. Evolutionarily, they are the first terrestrial plant. You have to keep in mind. These plants, which are calling as pteridophytes, are the first terrestrial plants. Okay, before that we have learned about bryophyte, and they are considered as the amphibians of a plants, right? So they can live in the water also and on the soil also. But this one is the first plant who can only live on the terrestrial region, and that's why it is written here, first terrestrial plant to possess vascular tissues. Okay, what is a vascular tissues? It include xylem and phloem. Let me understand more by using this diagram. So what is a xylem and phloem? You know very well, I think. Okay, so you know this is the xylem. Okay, so xylem is responsible for the transportation of water and minerals in the plants. So here in this group of plants, here pteridophytes are the first plants which possess vascular tissues. Okay, that includes xylem and the phloem. So this one is the xylem, here you can see. Okay, that will responsible for the transportation of a water and mineral together. Okay, and that is only one way. Here you can see only from lower to higher side. Okay, no end wall between the cells, here you can see. Okay, thick wall stiff with the lignin. This wall will be having lignin content. Okay, this will not allow the leakage of the water, and that's why lignin will be there. Okay, and next here is a phloem, you can see. Okay, this is responsible for two-way flow. Here you can see arrow shows you a two-way flow from higher to low and low to high also. Okay, and these type of phloems are responsible for the transportation of water and the food both. Okay, water and food, mostly food, but water also maybe sometime will be transported across the phloem. Okay, and here in between two cells, you can see here this is one cell and this is second cell. So in between two cell and walls with the perforation, this is the perforation, by using which both the cell will communicate with each other. Okay, so here this pteridophyte include a first terrestrial plants to possess vascular tissue, which includes xylem and phloem. One more thing you have to remember, that bryophytes having a dominant phase is the gametophytes. Okay, so bryophyte will have a dominant phase which is gametophyte, but here in this case, in the case of a pteridophyte, the dominant phase will be, means main plant body will be sporophyte. So this is major difference between bryophytes and pteridophyte. So let me repeat, what is the difference between bryophytes and pteridophytes? So here main difference between bryophyte and pteridophyte is that bryophyte will have dominant phase, that is a main plant body will be gametophyte. Okay, whereas here in case of a pteridophyte, a main plant body or a dominant phase will be sporophyte. So we remember this one. Okay, and it is differentiated into true root, stem and leaves. You know very well in bryophyte what we have discussed, that bryophyte do not have true roots, true stems or true leaves. Okay, but here in this case, what is that? True roots, true stems, true leaves, okay, will be present. These organs have well differentiated vascular tissue. As I told you, vascular tissue includes xylem and phloem. Okay, and the leaves is pteridophyta and are small, means in this group of plants you can see small leaves may be there, and if small leaves are there, it is considered as a microphyll. Okay, micro means a small and phylls mean the leaf. So here a small sized leaf will be there, that is called microphyll. Okay, this is an example is a Selaginella. Here you can see this is a Selaginella, and you can see here very small size leaves are there, and that is called microphyll. As it is small in size, it is called microphylls. Micro, small, phylls, leaves. Okay, the example is a Selaginella, and you have to remember this example also. And sometime even they will contain large leaf also. Okay, such as in the case of a fern. Here you can see this is a fern, and here you can observe large size leaf is there, and such a large size leaf is considered as a macrophyll. Macro, large, phyll mean the leaves. Okay, so such a leaves which are large in size is called macrophylls, as in the fern. Okay, so here two type you can see, leaves may be smaller size or may be large size. And if it is small size, is considered as a microphyll. Example is a Selaginella. And if it is large in size, it is considered as a macrophyll. An example is a fern. You have to remember both the examples. So now let me discuss about economic importance of a pteridophyta. So first of all, here a medicinal purpose is a very good importance of the pteridophyte. Means they are used as a medicinal purpose. Okay, here you can see some examples. This is rattlesnake fern, ostrich fern example, bracken fern. Okay, these all are ferns and which have some medicinal values. Okay, and that's why they are used as a medicinal purpose. Second one is they are used as a soil binders. They are very good soil binder, and that's why sometimes they are used as a soil binders. They grow as a ornamental for the decoration purpose. Ornamentals, that means decorative purpose. Okay, here you can see asparagus fern. Okay, Dryopteris type of Erythrocena. Okay, then Actinopteris. So these all are ornamental ferns. So these are the very important importance of economic importance of a pteridophyte. So now let me discuss about reproduction in pteridophytes. As I told you in previous slide, that pteridophyte will have a main plant body as a sporophyte. Okay, or we can say a dominant phase of this pteridophyte is the sporophyte. So here you can see sporophyte structure of a plant. Okay, the sporophyte will bear sporangia on specific region and the specific leaf on which the sporangia will be present, and such a leaf is called sporophyll. Okay, so be very clear. This is the whole structure of a sporophyte phase. Okay, and you know very well these all are leaves of the plant. Okay, and then on some plant leaf you can see here some leaf will contain sporangium, and that is responsible for the formation of spores. Okay, and such a leaf on which sporangium will be formed, and that is called sporophyll. Okay, and that are subtended by leaf-like appendages, and this leaf-like appendages is called sporophyll. Let me understand more by using this diagram. Suppose this is a sporophyll leaf-like structure which will bear sporangium. Okay, here you can see they will contain a sporangium, and this sporangium may be of two kinds, megasporangium and microsporangium. Okay, so if it forming a female spore, then it is considered as a megasporangium. Okay, and if it is containing or forming this male type of a spores, then it is considered as a microspores. Here you can see microsporangium, and this one is the megasporangium. So female related structure is a megasporangium, and this is the male related structure, and that is called microsporangium. In some cases, sporophyll form a distinct compact structure, and that is called strobili or cones. Here you can see this is the stobilus. Okay, here also you can see stobilus, and that is also called as a cones. Okay, for example, Selaginella and Equisatum. So what is this cones or a stobili? It is a combination of all microsporangium, okay, on a single strand, and that is called stobilus or a cones. Here you can see on this diagram. So first of all, you can see here, this is the stobilus, okay, which will have microsporangium as well as megasporangium. So many megasporangium and so many microsporangium together on a single structure, and such whole structure along with the sporophyll, that is called sporobilus or a cones. And sometime what happen, this microsporangium only found in this one cone, that is called male cone sometime. Okay, means if stobilus will have only microsporangium, at that time it is called male cone, and if only megasporangium is only present here, then it is considered as a female cone. And sometime you can see here in this diagram both are present. Okay, so here microsporangium is also there and megasporangium is also there. So this is just a cone. Okay, and sometime in some structures what happen, only female cone is there, this is differently situated, and male cone is differently situated. So if male cone is differently situated, it is only having a microsporangium in that, and if female cone is differently situated, then it is having just a megasporangium. This whole structure is called stobilus. Here in case of a pteridophyte, sporangia will produce spores. Okay, and that is by meiosis process in the spore mother cells. Okay, inside the sporangium there is a spore mother cell, and by using the spore mother cell meiosis will occur, and as a result of that spore will be formed. Okay, here you can see this is a sporangium in which meiosis will occur, and as a result of that spore will be formed. The spores germinate to give inconspicuous small multicellular, free living, and mostly we can say photosynthetic. Here you can see this structure. Okay, and that photosynthetic thalloid structure, and that is called gametophytic structure, and we can say it as a prothallus. Okay, so what will happen? The spore, after releasing from the sporangium, it will germinate. Okay, first of all, it will release from the sporangium. Here you can see, then it will germinate, and it will give rise to inconspicuous, small, multicellular, free living, mostly photosynthetic thalloid structure, thalloid gametophyte, and that specific thalloid gametophyte structure is called prothallus. Here you can see this is the prothallus. So here in this diagram you can see prothallus, that is from the fern. Okay, so after spore will germination, means spore, after germination of a spore, this prothallus will be developed. Now this prothallus will require cool, damp, shady places to grow. Okay, and also it needs water for the fertilization. Be very clear here. Okay, what will be needed by this prothallus for the reproduction or a fertilization? Water. So here it will need water for the fertilization. So the spread of a pteridophyte is limited. Why it is limited? Only because it will require water for the fertilization. Okay, and restricted to narrow geographical region. Why it is restricted? Because it will need water for the fertilization. Okay, and that's why this pteridophyte is limited and restricted to narrow geographical region. Sometimes reason may be asked in the exam, board exams, why pteridophytes is limited and restricted to narrow geographical region. So you have to give this region. The gametophytic or a prothallus, you know very well this prothallus is a gametophyte. Okay, and this gametophyte or a prothallus will bear male and female sex organs. Okay, it will having a male and female sex organ, and that is called antheridia and archegonia. Okay, so here you can see this is the antheridium. This region is antheridium. Okay, this one. Okay, and here you can see archegonium. So along with this rhizoid cell also present on this. Okay, and here you can see antheridium. This is the male gametes. Okay, and this is male gamete forming structure, and this one is the archegonium, that is a female gamete forming structure. Okay, so the gametophyte bear male and female sex organ, and that is called antheridia, which is responsible for male gamete formation, and archegonia, which is responsible for female gamete formation. Okay, and that is respectively. So as I told you, water is needed for the transfer of antherozoids. Okay, and this is antherozoid is nothing but is a male gamete from the antheridia. So from antheridia, once it is released, okay, it will release and then it will require water. Okay, suppose here you can see this is whole structure of a prothallus. Okay, and from that sperm cell will be released and egg cell will be there. But from sperm cell to reach up to the egg cell, it will require water. Okay, and to the mouth of the archegonium. To the mouth of the archegonium, if they want to reach, then it will require water. So antherozoid fuses with the egg in the archegonium to form zygote. So here inside this one, inside the archegonium, the zygote formation will occur. And whatever zygote is developed to a multicellular, well differentiated structure. Okay, after this, after fertilization, here you can see sperm. This one is the egg. Okay, this one is the archegonium structure. Only after reaching to the archegonium, the sperm cell will fertilize its egg cell, and finally when fertilization occur, zygote will be formed. And now this zygote will develop to a multicellular well differentiated structure, and now it is called as a sporophyte, like this. It will develop into the sporophyte. Here you can see mature sporophyte. Okay, and now further this sporophyte will ready to form a spores. Okay, as per I told you, it will ready for the formation of a spore. So what happened next? Let me see. Most of the pteridophyte will produce similar kind of spores. Okay, mostly they are having a spores having similar kind, means same size, same equal type of appearance like that. And if they produce similar kind of spores, then it is considered as a homosporous plants. Okay, so here we cannot differentiate as a microspores or a megaspores like that. Okay, so here both kind of spores will be similar in size and similar in look and appearance. So such a spore forming plant is called homosporous plant. Okay, and sometime what happen, these will produce, means some type of a pteridophyte will produce two kind of spores. Okay, one will be macro, as I told you, macro will consider as a mega or a female. Okay, and next one is a micro, that is a male like spores. Okay, so some pteridophyte will produce two kind of spores, and if it produces two type of spores, then it is considered as a heterosporous. If same kind of spores, then it is called homosporous. Okay, and if it is a different kind of spores, then it is called heterosporous. And if it is different kind of spores, then it will be a macro or a mega, we can say, that is a female spores, and another one is a microspores or a male spores. Okay, an example of such a plant which producing heterosporous type of spores, that is called, example is the Selaginella. Here you can see this is the Selaginella, and next one is a Salvinia here. Okay, let me understand more by using this diagram. So what is a homosporous spore production? So here what happened, only one kind of sporangium will be there. Okay, on the sporophyll, there is a no differentiation between microsporangium or a megasporangium here, because both are similar in size and shape and look. Okay, and that's why they will just form a single type of spore, as I told you. Okay, and typically a bisexual gametophyte here, and both will produce eggs and sperms. Both will look like similar. Okay, and such a plant are considered as a homosporous spore production in the plant. Okay, and let me see heterosporous. So here what happened, megasporangium and microsporangium both will be differentiated, having different size, different shape, and different look. Okay, and megasporangium is also called as a megasporophyll, and this microsporangium is also called as a microsporophyll. So megasporangium or a megasporophyll will produce megaspore, that is a female gametophyte, and that is responsible for formation of eggs. Okay, and this microsporangium or a microsporophyll is responsible for formation or production of a microspore, and that is a male gametophyte, and that is responsible for sperm formation. Okay, so by this way you must be very clear what is a homosporous and what is a heterosporous. So now let me understand more about reproduction in pteridophyte. So as I told you, if pteridophyte itself is a heterosporous, then they will produce two type of spores, megaspores and microspores, right? Okay, so if megaspore germinate, then it will give rise to female gametophyte. Be very clear. Okay, if megaspore germinate, then it will give rise to female gametophyte, and if microspore germinate, it will give rise to male gametophyte. The female gametophyte are retained on the parent sporophyte for the variable period. Be very clear about this. Okay, only female gametophyte will be retained on the parent sporophyte for the variable period. Within female gametophyte, zygote will be developed into young embryo. Finally, it will develop into the young embryo. This event is a precursor to the seed habit. Here, be very clear, seed will not form. Okay, but here we can say that in higher group of plants, this will be observed. And that's why here written why embryo is forming, because in next level of a plant or next higher level of a plant, this event will be precursor of a seed habit itself. Okay, it is considered as an important step in the evolution. So here you can see the example of a homosporous and heterosporous. So homosporous example is a Lycopodium corn. Here you can see all the these here sporangium are similar, and that is example of a Lycopodium. And here you can see all sporangium is not equal, all are different. Some is producing microsporangia, some are producing megasporangia. Okay, so this is the example of a Selaginella, and this is a Selaginella corn which is showing you heterosporous. So now let me understand more about pteridophyte reproduction cycle by using this diagram and overview whole process. So first of all, here you can see this is a sporophyte structure, right? Okay, on the sporophyte structure you can understand they will produce a megasporophyll, okay, or a microsporophyll on this one. Okay, this is considered as a sporophyll. So sporophyll is responsible for formation of a sporangium. Okay, here you can see this is the sporangium, and after you can see maturation, it will form after the meiosis process, it will form some spores. Okay, the spores may be similar kind if it in the case of a homosporous, and may be different, then it may be heterosporous. So if heterosporous or similar, then it will be germinate, means spore will be germinate, and then it will be form this kind of a mature gametophyte. Okay, and finally this gametophyte will produce egg cell and sperm cell. Okay, then the sperm cell means Entheridium will form the sperm cells, and here Archegonium will form the egg cell, and both the sperm and egg cell both will fertilize together and give rise to zygote. Finally, it will fertilize and give rise to zygote, which is the diploid in structure. Okay, and this zygote will develop into young embryo, then it will develop into this embryo. Okay, here you can see this is first leaf, first root, like this. It will develop more and more, and after maturation, here you can see it will generate the leaf of a young sporophyte. Okay, so by this way, this whole cycle will be completed in the case of a pteridophyte. So now let me go through classes of pteridophytes that is not in our syllabus. Just you have to remember name of a class and just one example. That's it. Okay, not more than that, because it is not included in our syllabus. So classes of pteridophyte include 4 classes. Here you can see. Okay, first one is a Psilopsida. Example is a Coelotum. Here you can see the photograph of a Coelotum. Next one is a Lycopsida, that includes Selaginella and Lycopodium. These both are the photograph. Here you can see Selaginella and Lycopodium that include into Lycopsida class. Next one is a Sphenopsida that include Equisetum. This one is a Equisetum. Then fourth one is a Pteropsida. Okay, that include Dryopteris, Edientrum, and then Pteris. Okay, this one is the example of a Pteropsida class. So, but just you remember a name of a class and just example of these classes. Now let me discuss very important topic, and that is asked so many times, differences between Bryophyte and Pteridophyte. Okay, and the pteridophyte is also considered tracheophytes. Okay, so here listed differences. Let me discuss one by one. So first of all, bryophytes are non-vascular. Okay, this is a major difference between bryophytes and pteridophyte. In here, pteridophyte itself is a vascular. That means they contain xylem and phloem. Okay, both are seedless. Here you can see both are seedless. Okay, here spores and haploid and gametophyte. Okay, so here you must remember spores and haploid and gametophyte, and here also spores and haploid gametophytes. Okay, then swimming sperm. Here also swimming sperm. Okay, then next, what is the difference of examples? So Mosses is the example, liverwort is the example of a bryophyte, but here fern is the example. So these is the differences between bryophytes and pteridophyte. Just you may ask in the 2 marks. So in the board, this question may be asked into 2 marks. So be prepared for this. So this is your homework for today's lecture. And before we finish this lecture, let me summarize whole topic by using one animation video. So look at this video.
You have probably seen ferns growing in gardens or in someone's backyard. Ferns are a type of pteridophyte. Pteridophytes are plants that flourish in a damp, cool and shady habitat, although some species also grow in sandy soil conditions. They occupy a special place in plant evolution, as they were the first terrestrial plants to possess vascular tissues and true root, stem and leaves. The leaves of a pteridophyte are large as in ferns or small as in the case of Selaginella. Pteridophytes are widely used as ornamental plants, soil binders, and for medicinal purposes. Based on the organization of the plant body, including the nature of the leaf and location of sporangia, they are classified as Coelopsida, Lycopsida, Sphenopsida, and Pteropsida. The life cycle of a pteridophyte begins when the plant body, a sporophyte, bears sporangia, which are subtended by leaf-like appendages called sporophylls. However, in some genera like Equisetum, sporophylls might form distinct and compact structures called strobili or cones. The sporangia produce spores in spore mother cells by meiosis, which germinate into gametophytes called prothallus, a small, multicellular, free-living and mainly photosynthetic gametophyte which grows only in cool, damp and shady places. The prothallus also bears the male and female sex organs, the antheridium and archegonium. The antheridium produces the male gametes called antherizoids, whereas the archegonium produces an egg. When released, antherozoids travel through water and eventually reach the mouth of the archegonium, where each one fuses with an egg to form a zygote. This zygote develops into a young embryo, which further develops into a multicellular and well-differentiated young sporophyte, and ultimately into a mature sporophyte. This completes the life cycle of a pteridophyte, which is divided into the gametophytic phase and the sporophytic phase, the most dominant phase. Pteridophytes can be homosporous or heterosporous. Homosporous pteridophytes produce spores of similar kind, while heterosporous pteridophytes produce two different types of spores, large or megaspores and small or microspores. Megaspores germinate into female gametophytes, which produce eggs, while microspores germinate into male gametophytes, which produce antherozoids. The egg and antherozoid fuse to form a zygote, which develops into a young embryo, which then gives rise to a sporophyte. These pteridophytes occupy an important place in the plant kingdom, as they were the first plants to have true roots, stems and leaves, as well as vascular tissues.
In next lecture, we will learn about gymnosperms. So till that, goodbye.